was a child in 1965. Calgary Tower, I remember it being only half built. Robin Hood Flowers used to be where Golf Canada Square is. You know, there was lots of railway tracks. There was all bush down here, like, you know, from where the East Village buildings are now. That used to all be just park and trees. There was a dirt road going down the riverbank. The riverbank used to be a lot bigger. You know, like there was more bush. Patrick's Island was, what do they call it now? They call it, there used to be St. George's Island. The zoo was even just tiny. It was like, we went once in a while. We had the swinging bridge to get across to it. Like, and then they still had that little 2-lane road to get across. But like Memorial Drive was like nothing. It was just like a 2-lane blacktop going on the other side of the river. You know, to get across, you had to walk across the swinging bridge. Yeah, the biggest thrill was going to the dinosaur thing. You know, the big brontosaurus is sitting in the front.
It took years to get buses because we had streetcars. And that was one thing we were really bad at, is in the winter time we hung on to the back of the streetcars and our ice skates. Yes, we did. But like I say, there wasn't as many nearly. We probably would have killed ourselves if they had vehicles like they do today. But a streetcar would come by and we hook on to the back and go all the way downtown on it and have to come back. But that was the kind of things we did. Everybody did that. You know, it's like tobogganing and skating and even roller skating. It was a big thing around here. Everybody did it.
When I was a kid, I loved it too because of the area. It was a river flowing, and in Brownies we got to go overnight and, you know, do our cooking on the fire and roasting marshmallows, singing camp songs, and it was good back then. You know, we were kind of a little freer to explore, and this was nice to explore around here.
We weren't born here. We were born in Edmonton. We come here and it's about 4 or 5, something like that. And we lived in the building right on the corner across the street there. We lived there for 12, 13 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All these houses here had children in them, most of them. And they all went to that school. Lots of houses on this side over here too.
Yeah.
On 9th Avenue.
Our toys were jumping off the ledge and into the river. You know, my dad, my uncle, and a couple other guys who would stand up downstream from us, and we could jump off the bridge. You know, jump in the river. That was my toys. You know. All the cliffs across the river here. You know, it's all them dirt cliffs that you see when you walk going down Memorial Drive. Well, I was crawling around up there somewhere. That, like I said, that was my playground. We used to, you know, at one point in time, there's the sewers here. We used to take rubber tubes and go up the end of the sewers and go up the hill. And you take the rubber tube up there and you push it all the way up the hill inside the sewers. And of course, worry about gas and stuff, but we never thought of that. And you get to the top of the hill and then you all jump on the rubber tube and you come out of that sewer, you do it about 30, 40 miles an hour. We just fly out into the river. And then, of course, somebody got injured one day, so they put rocks in front of all of them. So you can't do that anymore. Safety thing, of course, but when I was a kid, that was good. You know, it was a gas. You know, take you 3 hours to get up the hill, but 20 seconds to get down.
You go around swiping beer bottles, and they come after you.
What's that? Tell me about that.
Well, that's how you got money to go horseback riding.
Yes.
Go swipe some beer bottles and sell them and go horseback riding. I think they were a penny a bottle. You get them in the alleyways here, or, you know, go.
They don't have alleys now, so they.
Right.
Because I can remember Jackie's mother saying, I used to run you through that alley. She said, I wouldn't think of it now.
But gee, go where we knew people drank beer, and we'd ask them for their bottles. If they didn't give them to us, we'd get them somehow.
You used to get them in the back of the St. Louis mostly. They
I
had a
don't
back
remember that.
door there, and they used to stack them up there. Empties.
Yeah, not full ones.
Sometimes they'd leave that door open, and we were in there, man. I was in there and getting them.
For $1, you could go to a movie and, you know, pretty well get all the candy you wanted. All the old Godzilla movies, and, you know, John Wayne, you know, I can't remember them all, but so I remember John Wayne all the time, and Charlton Heston. But they were all young back then. You know, they said Godzilla was like, you know, an actually about this tall. It was pretty bogus, but when you look at it now, Mickey Mouse, you know, children's things.
On Fridays, we'd go Friday evening, and then we'd go twice on Saturday, depending what was on. We went to the Variety, the Grand, the Capitol, the Palace, the...
No, the Variety and the Strand.
Yeah, right, yeah, Strand, not the Grand. Grand was around the corner. Yeah.
What's happened to those places?
They were tore down. The Strand was tore down 40 years ago, and the Variety about 20 years ago.
And even the Tivoli, where Aunt Nancy used to take us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Gary, we never went there very often.
No, the Gary was over. Well, the zoo turned off.
Yeah.
Well, I knew that there was hookers here because I stopped over by the street and I went in. I was going to go into the Golden Age Club, and it was winter, and I stopped, and this girl tried to get in my car, but it was locked before I could even get out. I mean, she just ran away. It was cold, so she needed to get in somebody's car, and she assumed I wanted her in, but I didn't. And my son said, "Mom, if you are not comfortable, I'll move you somewhere else." And I said, "Honey, you know, you kind of have to look over your shoulder no matter where you live." So I said, "I'll just be really careful," because everything else seemed to be good. The bus route, the people are very nice. And that's important. And now we all seem to look after each other, just like a family.
I was in a shelter, and at Kirby Shelter, I stayed a couple of months, and the counselor got me into the King Tower. And I hung in there, and he kept saying, "Oh, go live there, go live there." No, I want to live where I want to live. I love the surrounding there. And I'm curious of what it's going to become. I'm sure it's going to be the most beautiful neighborhood in Calgary.
I just moved into the corner condos, and gosh, there was so much going on, and it was unbelievable. The prostitutes are on the corner every day, every night. People are actually lighting up the pipes, whatever it is they do, in the glass. There was a bus used to come down. It didn't used to go sort of around the back, and it would come down at 8th Avenue, and openly, there were drugs, and it was just sort of amazing for us. It was almost entertaining. We actually didn't have any problem with it. It just sort of was part of our everyday and our every night, really. And these guys would gather in here, they'd look left and look right. They never thought that all the old folks up in the, well, not us old folks, were looking down through the glass roof and saw all this stuff. And it was just a regular, the way it was. It was just unbelievable how this place has changed. We've just watched it go from that type of surrounding. But when I first moved in, I also walked down the corner and I saw the Golden Age Club. And I thought, I wonder what this is. So I went in the door and I said, what is this?
The club, the Golden Age Club, they had quite a number of things for dinners and even 50s dance. I had so much fun one time there. With the three buildings, you know, Murdoch and King Tower, it's almost like a little neighborhood of seniors. And we all sort of look after each other.
Yeah, we had dances there regularly. It was a meeting place, a library. It was wonderful. And we had a flea market every month. Then I volunteered with bingo every week. I volunteered cooking meals even for Friday night for the socials. And then we danced our hearts out. And we did so much stuff, didn't we? We went out. We went to volunteer at different bingos and casinos, and it was heartbreaking, really, when it closed. We had our adult day program, and they came down to us. One of the ladies that came used to live on a farm over here by the river, and her father kept his cows over where the grass is by the fort.
We were involved with the East Village Spectacular.
The Vaudeville Spectacular.
The East Village Vaudeville Spectacular. And
Standing room only when we gave our performance.
we did 2 performances. We did the history of the East Village, right from the time when they developed the fort and right through up until it even talked about that we were living on a floodplain and how they had raised it up. And we would sing about that. We wore hard hats and we sang about the floodplain. And then, what was it, 2 months later, we had a flood. And we got flooded out, which was kind of ironic.
The flood started on about June 20th, 2013. It came on us very quickly. I was up on the 12th floor and I looked out the window on a Saturday morning and I saw lots of pools of water came down here. One of the people took me out here. Our backyard here looked like Niagara Falls. It was just torrents of water coming through. Water was coming through all over. It went down into the city parkade, went into City Hall. They were evacuating people in boats right in front of our building, about half a block away. Cars had water right up to the windows. There was police everywhere. Anyways, we evacuated the building. I walked down from the 12th floor down to the main floor in the dark with a flashlight, tapping my way.
Particularly over in Murdoch, they were out about 3 or 4 months. And some never did really recover, you know, from one thing or another. 2 of my really good friends passed away that lived over there. Yeah. So it was pretty sad. We still had the Golden Age Club, and it was, the Red Cross was set up there, plus different things would come in, and you could go in and take what you needed, you know, for food or cleanup stuff. And the Red Cross was there too, which I mentioned, yeah. So it was sort of a home base, you know, if you needed anything or needed someone to talk to. I had my daughter, I had my family, but there's a lot of people who did really, really need counseling. Yeah, they sure did. And they were able to get it too. And months later, there was still programs going on for recovery, you know, because it's just, you just don't get over it real quick. Because you're just all of a sudden out of a home, and that's it.
They came and knocked on our doors, and they say we have to evacuate the building. So I said, oh, I'm gonna call Access Calgary. So I packed up a few things. I left my cat behind. My cat was well when I left him. I left him all kinds of food and all that. I said, I'm gonna be gone 2 days. No, we were gone 6 weeks. So they came and picked up the cats, the SPCA, put them in a cage, and he started to get sick, and I had to have him euthanized. So that was really, really painful. My cat was like my little child, you know, my furry child. I loved that cat so much.
Well, during the flood, we were all over at the drop-in center, and they gave us a warning that we're going to have to move out. I thought they were going to get us out of there by 11 o'clock at night, but they didn't start moving us out of there until first thing in the morning. So they had buses over on the other side of the river, so we had to cross the bridge, and there was about, that far from the bottom, top of the bridge, or else it would have got flooded out. Bridge is going like this. You could feel the vibration from all the water hitting the bridge, eh? And that was funny. So they loaded us all up on buses, took us out to the hotel that they got up on Main Street, opened it up, and we all crashed in there. I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. I volunteered there to help with the chaos, because there was all chaos. The good thing about it, there were so many donations coming in. Right? I was surprised that the city had gathered in that. Like, this city has a big, big heart for disasters.
It was sad. I must have come every day, and I would sit on top of the hill over there, and I would look over and think, gee, I wonder when we're going to get back in our home. Like, that's our life there. Like, you know, I would never want to live anyplace else. It is so warm, and my family's there, and during the flood, you know, everybody started coming in a little bit at a time. Where have you been? Are you all right? You know, and we're doing the same thing, and all of a sudden, we just, the whole buildings, both buildings,
Yeah.
well, the whole community actually, just everybody looked at everybody differently.
Yeah,
It was like,
there was a link there.
everybody,
Something just snap,
yeah,
fit into place.
we realized how important people are in our lives.
Yeah.
We became family.
Yeah.
It was no longer just a place to live. It was, these are our family. We have to make sure that everybody's okay, right?
So one thing that was amazing was the Murdoch, people in Murdoch. There's a man in there, he cooks. He had the barbecue going. He made coffee that morning, and we were all there, and everybody's telling their story. And it was so marvelous how the community came together for
And
that.
people took food out of their fridges to share. George from the store brought milk and all that.
the perishables.
He had no electricity, so that was all donated. And there was a gentleman from the Orange Lofts, Alan, was it? Who kind of did a lot of organizing, and it became a community. That flood made
He said that
East
actually.
Village a community, because people got to talk to people that they had never seen before, because the young workers who live in our building go to work, come home. They don't see the seniors. And this time they got to see the seniors, and they got to talk to people, and you got to meet your neighbor.
It took me a long time to get over it. Finally, I got over it, and but even now to this day, mid-June, people still get very scared when it comes to the flood. But my feelings now towards refugees. I see them in a different light because I know 100,000 people were evacuated here. And I was one of them.
I was a wanderer, so I used to wander into the corral, and after a while the staff got to know me, and I used to be able to watch all the hockey games for free. They just let me wander in. Like I said, I was only a little guy. I guess I was cute as a button according to them, right? So they used to let me just wander in, and because I lived right across the street from it, that was my playground, right? And it's like every year they used to give us, we'd always get rolls of tickets for rides for the Stampede. And back then, like I said, very small back then. I can remember, my dad taking me there and spending the whole day riding rides, having a good time, and it didn't cost anybody any major amount of money. The roller coaster was made out of wood, nothing fancy, not the drop of death or nothing. It was like the Matterhorn was there, and the teacups we spun around, and the Ferris wheel, of course.
Yeah, I worked at the Stampede grounds 2 years. 8, 9, 10, something like that. We cleaned up in one of the big buildings down there.
Well, we cleaned up out there a lot and carried water and found a lot of money. That's why we did it. We were glad when they came and glad when they left. Stampede.
You could go through the neighborhood at Stampede time, and there was parties galore. People were out in their, front lawns. It was an electric area. This was just, there was a lot of things going around. There was a lot of people. There was a lot more people on the street, a lot more kids. Like I used to hang out with one of your interviewers. I've known these guys through seeing them years ago. There was curling down here. The Big Four was a curling place. My dad used to curl. It was a working man's area, and it was a place where you get a clean place to sleep if you just needed a place to house you. There was a lot of rooming houses, and of course, working class guys. There was a lot of, places to drink beer. There's, you look in this proximity, there used to be 7 full big bars. There was the National, there was the York, there was the Regis, there was the Louis. So I'm gonna miss them all because there was so many of them. But working man bar, and again, as it changed, so did the perspective on the bars, right?
And the place to be, though, Stampede Week, was St. Louis. Everybody went there Stampede Week because they had the best band and the best food and just the best atmosphere there. And I'm sure that's why Klein liked it so much. They always talked about his beer, but everybody from City Hall went there for lunch because they had good food.
My friend was the Boy Scout leader, and he said, "Do you want to ride a horse in the parade, Stampede?" I said, "No, thank you." Well, he said, "How about meeting me at the King Eddy for a beer right after the parade?" He said, "I'll be back with my horse." And I said, "Okay, I'll meet you there." And we went in, and nobody was in the place where you sit there. And so he got us a beer, and then he disappeared, and I didn't know where he went. I was supposed to know there was a girly show in the back, and that's where he went. But I'm sitting there all by myself, and I'm thinking, this is weird. And these 2 women came in. Eventually, my neighbor, I was telling her about, she said that was her and her mother. They came in and sat down. And they just nicely got sat down. And in the door comes this big horse with this man on it. When you're sitting down, it's a giant. So I didn't know whether to run. I couldn't get out the door because the horses behind was too close to the door. And I didn't know where my friend had went, because he went somewhere. So I thought, well, just sit here and be scared. That's all you can do. Pee your pants or whatever. So I did nothing. I just sit there. And he gave the reins to her mother. She sat there and held it. He had a quick beer, took his horse and left. And I thought, oh boy. And you know, I think my friend must have got lucky that day because he never did appear again.
We had good staff there, good service, and it was basically a bar that you wanted to be in. And we were once told that Billboard magazine rated us as one of the top 10 bars in North America. Now, I have no confirmation of that, but the point was, is in our own mind, we knew we were one of the top bars. So basically, it was live and let live, and we treated everybody well. The bikers would come in, and I counted one night 105 bikes outside our door. This was time of old-fashioned hotels, and I noticed that from about 81 on, things started to change. When they put the LRT through here, and they put this tunnel, this cut off the east-west traffic, so people could not easily get down here. So even the owners said that this was one of the factors that caused the business to start to drop off. Things are a lot different now than they used to be. King Eddie, St. Louis, they're no longer here. Shamrock just closed last week, and Cecil's pulled down. I don't think there's one old hotel around anymore. I didn't really care for managing a bar. I didn't really care for it at all. It's just one of these things. You're there, and one day, you know, you're made manager, and the next day, that's it.
Yeah, I had the last jug of beer in the Cecil. I was sitting in the Cecil at 10 o'clock in the morning when it opened. And I was sitting there enjoying my beer because I had a day off. And these 5 cops walked in. I go, something's up here. And one of them was people that handed out the permit. He was a permit dude. And I walked up to the bar and goes, I want your license right now. I go, oh, really? So they got the license, and they're about to rip it up, and one of the cops said, we should be filming this. Because they had been trying to close down the Cecil like for the last forever. So they all brought out their cameras and were taking pictures, and the guy ripped it up really slowly, and they were doing click, 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 click. They come over to me and they go, get out. I said, excuse me, I haven't finished my beer yet. I bought it, and I ain't going nowhere until I finish the beer. Hurry up. And I thought they were going to throw me up, but they didn't. They just finish up, go. And yeah, I had the last beer. Yeah.
It's a good area. I love this area. I really do. I'm glad they're building it up again. Unfortunately, you had to tear down the Good Blues bar. And we used to go there, you know, a couple times a month. And it was a great time. Get to hear your blues and stuff, so yeah. And unfortunately, I had to move it. But it's just a Friday or Saturday night out and hooking up with your friends, having a couple beers, listening to some good music. Yeah, that's just what we did back then. And now, you know, you find different bars to go to. They're more updated. To me, I like the old school bars, like King Eddie and stuff like that. So
We started getting a real following there, and they had a logo up on the side of the building, King Eddie, home of country rock, and we were the home of country rock. As far as the blues coming in, we booked in one blues band just as an experiment, and they came in. I think it was Vassar Clements and the legendary blues band, and they had a lot of great musicians with them. This was long before blues came to the King Eddie, and as I understand it, the new owner, Jack Karp, had to be really talked into taking the blues, and actually it turned out to be a gold mine for him.
But we used to hang out. A lot of times we'd come downtown as teenagers because there was arcades there, and there was girls there, and there was malls you could walk through. So there was good little restaurants to eat at. So that was kind of, downtown was the kind of, I guess, the meeting place of the younger, or my generation. I think it was the same for my older brother too. They used to hang out downtown because that's where everybody hung out.
And then as I got older, get away from the parents. So over here was where we went. Like the younger, I was like 14 or 15 years old, I guess. And over here was a lot of rooming houses. And I rented the house, and then my buddies moved in, and it was their landlord. And then once the people knew, they said, oh, well, come over to our house, and you can run this place, right? And it just kind of went like that quite a lot. Just seemed to be I seemed to be the guy who could get the rent out of the boys. I said, no, don't go to the bar. Give me the rent money, then go to the bar, right? Back then, rents weren't that high. I think I was paying, $300 or $400 a month for the room, and so guys were only paying me $70 or $80, out of their monthly wage, which was back then it was about $300 or $400 a month each. So 4 of us together, we all lived pretty high on the hog. Well, that was before the boom really started here with the oil business, so it was all pretty cheap, right? And then once the boom started in the late middle 70s, then of course we all started making real money, and this whole idea kind of fell apart, because everybody was rolling in cash, going up north, and what do I got to rent a room? I can rent a house by myself, right? So that kind of fell apart in this neighborhood then, back in the 70s.
The big boom came, one of the booms was the middle 70 to 81 period. That was during the Trudeau years when we had the massive, like high interest rates, high inflation rates. And then the NEP program came in, just shut everything down. And that hurt everybody. And especially because this was this area in Vic Park combined, you could get affordable housing. You could get single residency, you get a room. You'd have a roof over your head for a reasonably good price. And it was a very good thing for Calgary because it gave some cushion to rental accommodation availability, right? That was one of the things they were concerned about when they took it down is how long to replace those number of units for that demographic of the society, right? The food in the area was cheap. You had good little restaurants like the old Lion's Den and Express Cafe, and you could go to the Bay and eat, and they had cafeterias that were good and stuff like that. But when that hit, that hurt everybody. But of course, the people that suffer the most probably on an economic downturn are the poor, because all of a sudden they have no resources.
I've done a few interviews like this where they were figuring out why the homeless are still here. So I took them around all over town to all these different places where I've lived in. I said, look, closed, parking lot, parking lot, parking lot. They had torn it down or closed it up. I said, that's why nobody can find the place, because everybody wants $1,500, $1,200 a month. Well, most of us only make $1,200 a month, right? If we didn't drink and smoke. It's a lot of money for somebody to come up with. You always hear of people moving into a basement suite, which is really trashy, and they want absorbent amounts of money because of the building boom that's going on around here.
I don't mind the change. It's just like I said, I'm old and I like it. I like it here. It's just, it's just different. Maybe it's, 5 years from now I'll say, hey, this isn't so bad. It's just that it's going so fast. The changes are happening so fast that, I've taken me a little while to catch up to everybody else, right? And maybe in 5 years I'll say, oh, okay, well, now that I look at the whole picture, now that I see it all, because we're watching it being built, so it's hard to say where it's going to go, right? It's like hard to make a judgment call. Like, what we see today. We're like, what am I going to see in 6 months? Like it's going to be something totally different, right? It's like, so I say, wait for the future. Wait to see what happens. Besides that, I got no complaints. I think it's all right. Not all the time, but most of the time.
The communities 30 years ago, 40 years ago were tighter. The community itself, like you knew everybody on your street. You don't really know that anymore, do you? Do you know your neighbors? Not really, right? 30, 40 years ago you did. I knew every neighborhood, every neighbor, 10 people around, 10 houses around, bopped down the back alley, 3-4 blocks over, seriously. But we've lost that, eh? Evolution of a city.
Living down here was more like a big family. It wasn't, I don't think we were ever worried about what was going on, with anybody else. We were just sort of our group, what was going on with our group and how everybody seemed to get along fine. Maybe it's because we were in the red light area, I don't know. And I mean, the mothers, like in those days, if you were out after 8 o'clock, it didn't matter whose mother it was or if they knew, and it seemed like I used to tell everybody in Calgary knew I had to be in by 8:30. If I was out at 8:45, everybody you met along there gave you a slap on the way home. Aren't you supposed to be home by now? Whack! Get home, And that was a normal thing, We didn't think anything of it as like, oh, geez, I'm 15 minutes late, I'm going to get killed. For sure, you did not want to meet anybody you knew on the street. But I think about it now, they looked after her. Everybody looked after everybody's kids. You're not out late, and if you're out after 8 at somebody's house, the mother was running you home. Like, no, it's 8 o'clock, you gotta go home now. But that's the way it was around here.
My mom and dad, they would try to find me. They phoned the Calgary Transit. Did you see my son? Oh yeah, he's on the number 1 route, catching the number 10, and then we'll have him back in about an hour. And I was only like 6 years old then, but that was a different town.
It was like, I don't know, to me it was like fun. We knew everybody, so it was easier getting around and doing things.
That's right. Seemed to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you stayed around
your area.
Around this area. If you went uptown, you could see a lot of prejudice stuff up there.
Yeah.
You're staying in this area, especially when I got older to go to work. I couldn't get a job driving cab. I couldn't get on with the city.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that.
That was years and years later before you could do any of that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, when we were small.
When we were small, most of the black people were around here.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we got
they
to
didn't have
teenagers,
choices.
they were spread right out.
Yeah. No choices.
I hate when you see where people are talking about how bad the DI is and, East Village coming and stuff like that. It's time for change. Change may be better. And I think that it would be. So I think that it would be better for everybody. Making something new, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think so anyways. And it's gonna brighten up this area, and like I said, it's starting to look beautiful.
I love living in the East Village. I will not move from it. I just feel at home. It's just like when I lived in England in the small village. You go out of the door, hey, how are you today? And it's wonderful. I've met actually a lady from over here, and she said it's so quiet, nobody speaks, so she's actually trying to join our community, the East Village Neighbourhood Association.
And it's a real sense of community, a real village feeling. Actually, I have more of a village feeling here than when I lived in the town of Wembley. So this is really a village, and it's a lovely place to be.
I love this area because I bike. I love this area because of the people. I don't think there's any place, and I've lived quite a few places, where the people are so warm-hearted. And if everybody could just have a pinch of that, what a wonderful world we would live in. You know, we wouldn't have all this chaos and all the things that are happening out there right now. I live in a dream world here, you know, in my own dream world. This is the way I've always wanted life to be. I'm grateful for being here. I'm grateful they took me in. And I'm grateful for the friends that I've met in the community that always, always watch out for me.